In 1859, in the San Pedro Valley, a group of Apache warriors observe from a cliff as two land surveyors and a boy start mapping out the plans for the town of Horizon. One of the young Apache men wonders why the men have chosen this particular location, while his companion just shrugs. Desmarais, a missionary, traverses the open desert on his horse in search of Horizon, having been led there by a flyer advertising the new town. When he encounters a man at a dilapidated church who informs him that he has already passed the area, Desmarais retraces his steps only to stumble upon the lifeless bodies of the two surveyors and the boy. After burying the bodies, he decides to remain and carry on with their unfinished task. Later in Montana Territory, Lucy reaches a secluded cabin and shoots the sleeping resident, James Sykes, in the chest. She sets free his horse and departs with her baby, Sam. James, clinging to life, is taken back to his family's estate. Mrs. Sykes, the head of the family, instructs James' sons, Caleb and Junior, to track down Lucy. In 1863, a small makeshift town emerged in Horizon, with more newcomers streaming in. The residents gather at the town's dance hall to revel in the festivities. Frances Kittredge joins the celebration with her husband James, son Nat, and daughter Elizabeth before they all head back to their residence perched atop a cliff just outside town. During the night, the family is startled by an assault from a band of Apache warriors who proceed to set the town ablaze and attack its inhabitants. Both the locals and the Apache engage in a fierce battle, resulting in casualties on both sides. Some locals manage to reach the Kittredge household and assist Frances and her family in fending off the Apache onslaught until they are eventually overwhelmed. Frances and her daughter seek refuge in a hidden space beneath the house, using a shotgun to breathe through a hole in the ground. James and Nat gear up to continue the fight outside the relative safety of the house. Meanwhile, Russell, a young resident, escapes on horseback. The next day, the remaining townspeople emerge from their hiding spots to assess the devastation as the Apache group retreats to their mountain settlement. Russell makes his way to Camp Gallant close by and alerts the U.S. Army about the assault. Lieutenant Trent Gephardt and Sergeant Major Thomas Reardon head a team of soldiers to Horizon to inspect the wreckage and assist in burying the deceased. Gephardt explains to the surviving locals that the town's positioning had made them vulnerable to the Apache attack. In the Apache community of Piansene, a young tribe member clashes with the elder Tuiza over the recent assault on Horizon. Tuiza fears that the attack will provoke retribution against their tribe and advocates for peaceful resolutions. However, Piansene is firm in his belief that hiding in the mountains is not a way of life for him and insists on fighting back. As a result, Tuiza exiles Piansene from the village, along with a group of like-minded men including Taklashim. Taklashim debates with his wife about the consequences of his actions, acknowledging the widows and orphans left behind, but she eventually agrees to stand by his side. Tuiza's son informs him that he has chosen to join Piansene, a decision that Tuiza respects, bidding farewell with the hope of a future reunion. Later, Tuiza converses in English with his other son regarding the unfolding events. Reardon breaks the news to Russell about the passing of his parents. Chavez, a Pima Indian scout aiding the army, leads a team in an attempt to trail the Apache group. Upon returning to town, Chavez stumbles upon a hidden space under the Kittredge house, triggering a rescue mission that results in the liberation of Frances and Elizabeth. Gephardt advises the surviving residents of Horizon to vacate the area and establish a new settlement at Camp Gallant. Elizabeth and Frances sadly find out about the demise of James and Nat, giving them a proper burial before departing with the army to Gallant. Elias Janney notifies Gephardt of his intent, along with Russell and others, to pursue the Apache for vengeance and to claim their scalps. Despite Gepphardt's reservations, he allows them to depart as there are no official laws governing such actions in the region. Lucy, now known as Ellen Harvey, resides in a quaint mining town alongside her son and husband, Walter Childs. The family lives together with Marigold, who works as a prostitute. Horse trader Hayes Ellison arrives in town, accompanied by a group of men, catching Marigold's attention. She flirts with him at the general store, revealing the town's confidential information. Despite initial rejection, Marigold persists and convinces Hayes to visit her at her residence later that day. Lucy and Walter get ready to depart from the town for Walter's work, reluctantly leaving Sam at home under the supervision of Marigold. Francis and Elizabeth settle into their new routine at Camp Gallant and express their gratitude to Gebhardt for assisting in their rescue. Gebhardt and Reardon have a discussion with Colonel Albert Houghton. Houghton does not agree with Jeffords' efforts to discourage settlement at Horizon. Instead, he believes that the white men outnumber the native inhabitants and will eventually occupy the land as their own, even if it means sacrifices along the way. Lucy and Walter reach a cabin for their land transaction, only to realize it's a trap set up by Caleb and Junior. The brothers reveal their plan to bring Lucy and her son to their still-alive father. When Walter intervenes, Caleb strikes him from behind, causing his immediate death. Lucy attempts to flee but is unsuccessful, leading to a confrontation between Caleb and Junior, with Junior upset about burying Walter. Junior instructs Caleb to head to the mining town, where he encounters Hayes. Caleb taunts Hayes as they walk together, leading to a showdown at Marigold's house. Hayes emerges victorious, shooting Caleb dead. He swiftly leaves town, offering to take Marigold and Sam with him. In western Kansas, Matthew Van Wyden leads a group of wagons along the Santa Fe Trail. The travelers include an upper-class British pair, Juliet Chesney and Hugh Proctor, as well as the extended family of James Kittredge, which comprises Owen Kittredge and his daughter Diamond Kittredge. During a stop for repairs and rest, a horse becomes unruly, but Diamond steps in to calm him down and prevent an accident. Matthew reprimands Hugh and Juliet for not contributing enough to the group. Juliet stands her ground against Matthew, while Hugh quickly agrees to be more helpful. Matthew learns that two Pawnee scouts are tracking the caravan and decides to take precautions by halting early for the night to safeguard the group from a possible attack. Juliet uses some of the group's water to bathe, only to be caught undressed by two young men. Hugh urges Matthew to discipline the men, but instead, Matthew scolds both Hugh and Juliet for using the limited water for bathing. Later on, Matthew confronts the men, who deny the accusation and refuse to follow his orders. That night, they observe Hugh and Juliet from a distance as they sit in their wagon. Reardon asks two young trainees to help him move furniture out of his house while his wife, Mrs. Reardon, enjoys tea with other ladies. Mrs. Reardon discovers the men and becomes upset because the furniture belonged to their deceased daughter. Reardon clarifies that the furniture is intended for Francis and Elizabeth, and Mrs. Reardon comprehends his decision. Elias, Russell, and Tracker come across a native man and his family at a small trading post. Tracker urges Russell to shoot the man, but Russell refuses, and they decide to release him. Later, Tracker proposes acquiring some native men to assist them in pursuing the Apache group further. Tracker mentions the challenge of identifying the specific individuals responsible for the destruction of Horizon and suggests eliminating anyone they encounter instead. Russell and Elias agree to continue the search. Junior comes back home with Caleb's body and informs his father that he has already sent men to locate Hayes and Marigold. Hayes notices they are being followed and observes from a hilltop as Junior and his group search a small village. Marigold expresses a desire to halt their running, but Hayes insists that the Sykes family won't allow her to survive and suggests they remain in the mining town now that Junior has moved on. Marigold begins a romantic relationship with a wandering gambler, and he attempts to persuade her to leave Hayes and Sam and go with him. After one final intimate moment with Hayes, Marigold leaves Sam under the care of a group of Chinese immigrant laborers before departing from town. Hayes wakes up to find her absence and comes to terms with the situation. A group of soldiers is summoned from Camp Gallant to join the Civil War. Francis and Elizabeth bid farewell to the men, with Elizabeth offering them a heartfelt farewell, lifting everyone's spirits. Francis and Gebhardt share a tender moment by the riverbank and share a kiss. Tracker, Elias, Russell, and their companions stumble upon an Apache camp and patiently wait for the men to depart on a hunt. Once the men are gone, they launch an attack on the remaining women and children. Russell watches in horror as Tracker begins to scalp the bodies. After completing their grim task, The group swiftly departs before the men return. The movie concludes with a series of scenes showing all the characters and their individual storylines from Part 2. The scenes include a glimpse of Pickering as he prints more flyers promoting the town of Horizon. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.